What is happening, everybody, and welcome back to yet another episode of Slightly Biased Sports Talks. As always, I'm Milan alongside Bowen. And for the first time in, I'd say, about a month or so, we've kind of got a bit of a slower time in the sports world. The NBA Finals just finished. I believe it was 2 days ago now.
Good night.
Yes, Tuesday night. Obviously the Euros, the Copa America is done. We are currently in the midst of the Olympics, which will be officially having their grand opening on Friday night. But we're gonna obviously talk about what's happening in the NBA. Bowen, talk to me, brother.
Milwaukee Bucks, Milan, first NBA championship in 50 years, closing out the final series. And Milan, what are your thoughts? I know I'm not really getting too deep into it right now, but I remember a couple of weeks ago we were discussing the finals, and you asked me, is it likelier to be a sweep or go back 2-2? I don't think any of us had Milwaukee running away in the fashion they did in 6 games. Did you?
I didn't. I said it was going to be Milwaukee in seven had they, came to the senses that they should have, in my opinion. I thought in order for Giannis to get back into the series, he was going to need the likes of Chris Middleton and
Drew
Drew
Holiday.
Holiday to show up. And funny enough, he didn't really need that for the game six because
Mhm.
they didn't, compared to the standards of a second and a third best player on a team, I wouldn't say they showed up. But Giannis is 50 points, 14 rebounds and 5 blocks, 17 of 9 from the charity stripe, 16 of 25 from the floor. That was all they really needed, alongside maybe a little bit of a Bobby Portis masterclass as well.
Mhm. Yeah, and we talked about it. At least, for a while now, people have been saying Giannis, if he develops that 3-point shot, he's unstoppable. I don't know if he needs a 3-point shot to really take his game to the next level. We've already seen him at that next level this series. And I think as long as he's consistent from the free throw line, he's nearly impossible to stop. What are your thoughts on that?
100%. I mean, at the end of the day, we got to realize Giannis is one of those players where no one can guard him except himself, right? Kind of like KD, except KD is much more unstoppable in the sense that he can score in multiple different ways. We
Mhm.
know Giannis is kind of one dimensional in the sense that he can, and that's no disrespect whatsoever, because the dimension that he has is quite literally unstoppable, because he'll just
Mhm.
run at you and you're not stopping him, right? Yeah, he doesn't have a mid-range like KD does. He doesn't have a three-pointer like KD does. But how on earth, other than fouling this guy, can you stop this guy on a fast break?
When he's coming downhill, yeah. We saw it, the Suns, they tried their best. DeAndre Ayton. I'm not gonna say the stage was too big for him, but it could have, you could argue that because he just, you couldn't, they tried, Phoenix did, to put Aiden on him, didn't work, tried to put Crowder on him, didn't work. You're throwing in Frank Kaminsky to defend Giannis. We know how that's gonna
Crank the
end.
tank, baby.
We know how that's gonna end. No disrespect to Frank the Tank, but yeah, just Giannis now, 2 MVPs, Defensive Player of the Year, NBA title, Finals MVP, all at the age of 26. He hasn't even turned 27 yet. Coming out of the series, going into next season, do you have Giannis as the best player in the league, or is that still up for debate even after what he just accomplished?
He's one of, but my me personally, I value, like, really hate to use a quote that was taken wrongly, I believe, by James Harden, in terms of saying that Giannis has no skill. But it's
Yeah,
just
that's the one that's been making the rounds, right? The last couple
basketball
of days.
skill to me is a lot more important than being unstoppable. For me, Shaquille O'Neal was never the best player in basketball, even at his very best,
Even
because
at his
he
peak.
was, yes, he was completely unstoppable. Like, who the hell is guarding this guy in the post? But he's not that good at basketball as a whole. He can't shoot, he can't dribble. You know what I mean? There's positions in the sport of basketball that you don't really need to be good at everything at, like a center, like a power forward position. When you're a big like that, you can use your body well. For me, I can't give him the best player in basketball when you got the likes of LeBron James, you got Kevin Durant, you got Steph Curry still in the league, who just coming off, for me, probably a year that was better than both of his MVP years. It's just
Mhm.
he didn't finish as highly as those years.
Right.
Um,
Didn't even make the playoffs, got bumped in the playing game. But yeah,
yeah,
I mean, I think I'm really, for me, this obviously we both know that Giannis took his game to a new level this year in this finals series, especially. But I think just he's gotten a lot better at I'd say there's not as much tunnel vision. He's not just going downhill and just kicking it out like sporadically. He's finding open passes to teammates. He's getting doubled, but he's able to make those passes. And even then, like you get him close to the rim, you have to foul him, right? You're not stopping that man close to the rim. So I think just based off what he's achieved, I'd have to put him at 1. And I think it's a valid one because the last couple of years when he won MVP, people were questioning him, right? Because he didn't get it done in the playoffs. That was the big black stain on his career. 2019, 2020, the list goes on and on. But this year, he's got it done. I'm going to say I think Giannis is the best player in basketball, and I'd say very deservedly so at that. Even though I don't think the Bucks are going to be the number 1 team that's favored to repeat. Brooklyn is. I'd say the best player in basketball plays at Pfizer Forum.
It's not a bad take. I don't think it's a bad take at all. It's just me personally. I don't take Giannis as the best player in basketball when he's one-dimensional. But the fact that he's elevated his team to the level that it is, they're consistently like a threat in the East.
Every year. Well,
he's a 2-time MVP for a reason. To put up 50 points in an NBA Finals game, you're one of 7 players to ever do that, 50 plus points. One of 3 players in NBA history to have an MVP, a Defensive Player of the Year, and a Finals MVP, alongside pretty good company in Hakeem Olajuwon and Michael Jordan. I mean, there's not much to debate.
That's a pretty good list, right? That's a really good list.
There's not much to debate on whether or not he's one of the best. It's up to preference at that point, right?
Exactly.
But on the topic of the game as well, Jrue Holiday in that final game, pretty poor game up to his standards, but he still put out 12 and 11, was responsible for about 30 points of the Milwaukee Bucks out of the just over 100. What did you think of his game overall throughout the playoffs? Like, do you think he was that X factor for the Bucks to be able to get to the position that they were?
100%. Well, just based off what he brings defensively, he's made some incredible plays on defense. Obviously, stripping Devin Booker in Game 5. Game 5 was his game where he really took over. Obviously, all 3 players of that, I guess you could call it a big 3 on Milwaukee. They stepped up in Game 5, but it was Holiday's performance that we've been talking about it the whole time. If you want to steal a game in Phoenix, you got to have a guy like Holiday go off. He did just that in Game 5. His defense obviously was excellent, even though his shooting woes, like that's been a big talking point this series, especially. Like he brought it. And at the end of the East Finals series as well, Middleton and Holiday, they stepped up when they had to. So I think even though, yes, Milwaukee did ship off all those picks to get him, I think, at the end of the day, what are we really doing this for, right? You're doing it for a championship. It doesn't matter if you've mortgaged your future. At the end of the day, you're going for a title. We saw it with Toronto a couple years ago. They got their title. We saw it with LA. We see it all the time. Teams making these big moves to go for titles. And yeah, you have to be over the moon with what they've done. But yeah, I think Jrue Holiday, he definitely stepped up and proved his worth this series. Sorry, I just waffled there for about 8 years, but that's my thoughts on that. Yeah.
Not a problem at all. Actually, on the topic that you mentioned of, giving away your assets for like a win now kind of position. In my humble opinion, I don't know if you agree with this.
Yeah.
If you're a playoff team, a perennial playoff team, giving away picks really doesn't mean anything. Because at the end of the day, those picks, unless you've got the craziest scouting network and you do the craziest research on these 50th picks in the draft, there's no point of keeping those picks, because what else are you going to be doing with them? You're not going to be picking up these pieces when you already have, you got free agency. You can pick up a decent piece over there, a veteran player on a veteran's minimum. You can obviously trade them for good superstars. Maybe superstar is a bit of a stretch for Jrue Holiday, but Jrue Holiday is a very important team and a player in a championship team. And I think that I agree with you that he was probably what put them over the edge and what finally got them to the position that they were finally in.
100%. Because we look back at the Bucks teams of years gone by, they never had that guy to like give them that cutting edge, if that makes sense. I mean, we always had Giannis and Middleton, but it was just a bunch of, they just didn't have that extra guy. They always felt like a team that was one piece away. Now you had Holiday, you had Bobby Portis, who gives him that edge and gives him that spark off the bench. And Lopez, like he's been on the team for a couple of years, but like he understood his role. So I think, when we talked about it coming into the season, that Budenholzer and the Bucks, they were gonna, kind of tinker around in the regular season, mess around, they'll lose ground in the race. But if it means a title and it means they're able to make adjustments and figure things out come playoff time and adapt, it doesn't matter. And we've seen the fruits of their labor on Tuesday.
Most definitely. And just on the topic of Budenholzer as well, I've got to give him credit because although I'm a very big critic of him, I still stay a big critic of him because at the end of the day, we both know no Giannis, no championship, right?
Mm-hmm.
But Budenholzer did some very, very good adjustments throughout all the series in the playoffs. Defensive adjustments, the way he was able to switch after, I believe it was game 1 in the Eastern Conference Finals.
Oh, okay.
I think of that instantly because that was when Trae Young was torching them, right?
Yeah, that's when he went for 48, I think.
Something like that. Even in after game 2 in the Phoenix series, they're guarding Devin Booker a lot better. Using Giannis, because Giannis, as we know, he's best as a help defender, right? Which is what we saw in the Brooklyn series. Even when he was guarding KD, he was not ever really the primary defender.
Right.
People are
pretty critical. He got a lot of slander for that. Remember,
myself included, I was pretty critical of that. I believed if the best player on the court should be guarding the other best player on the court, right? But I mean, if it works, it works. If it wins you basketball games, who am I to judge, right? That's why he's in the position he's in, and that's why I'm here talking about him. Mm-hmm. But nevertheless, hats off to him. He's now an NBA championship coach. He's been in the game for a while now. I remember seeing him back in the Atlanta Hawks days, I believe, yep. Right? Back when they got that 60+ win team.
Yeah, he finally gets over his playoff hump. That's eluded him of a title for years and years, and he's got it. Going into next season, I guess we could switch over to this. Let's actually, I want to talk about Devin Booker for a second and the Suns, because it's been pretty Bucks heavy. I want to switch over to that. What do you make of, going forward for the Suns? Do you think this was their one window to win a title?
Me personally, I don't think it's the Suns' one window, but it might be Chris Paul's one window.
Mm-hmm.
And it's pretty sad because I remember being on the show, I believe 2 or 3 weeks ago, saying this is when Chris Paul wins his ring.
Yep.
Of course. But the way I see it, Chris Paul, he's not getting any younger, as we both know. He's a fantastic player, even at the big age of 35, 36 at this 36, point.
36, I believe. Yeah. Up there.
We know he's still got a few good years in him, but
to what extent is the question, right?
And the West keeps getting stronger because the West was like undoubtedly the stronger of the two conferences for years and years and years. And then all of a sudden LeBron went to the West. So a lot of these superstars went to the East. You can now even argue the East could be stronger than the West in terms of the top heavy teams, Brooklyn, Milwaukee.
I think it ends up there though. I think it kind of ends up there because you throw Philly in and you're like, we don't know what they're doing. Boston.
Yeah, I guess, but Philly is pretty organized as well, though. Like I, as much as I may not respect Philly in the playoffs, I respect Philly's team. You know what I mean? You got, for me, had he not been injured, you have the MVP on your team, right?
Mm-hmm.
But besides that, I mean, the West, they keep getting stronger. You've got the likes of Denver coming up. You've got the Lakers. They're going to be back. Clippers, they finally gotten over that second round slump.
I think Kawhi tears his ACL. He's going to be out for the season now.
Is he officially out for the full season?
He'll be getting back. Well, we know how Kawhi operates, right? He's going to be out until at least March. He's not going to mess around and play any meaningless April games unless he has to. Like he's waiting it out till the playoffs. You'd have to think.
Yeah, but I mean, they did pretty well even with Paul George as the superstar, right? They
to an extent. I mean, they pushed it to six games. I just like the Clippers aren't a threat next year. The Warriors should be better, but they have a lot of questions. The Lakers are only getting older.
You got Denver. You've got Utah, who potentially could surprise me next year. I wasn't shocked this year, but they could surprise me next year. Dallas. Let's not count on Luka as well. Like Luka could have his breakout year next year, all of a sudden make a finals appearance, right?
Things go right, but you're trusting Jason Kidd as head coach?
You're right. You're right. But I mean, Luka is one of those players, one of those MJ, LeBron type players where it doesn't matter who's on the sideline. He's going to do what he's going to do, and
Yep.
he's going to drag someone with him if he has to.
And then, yeah, you look at Denver, you look at, Denver, Jamal Murray is going to be out for a while too, coming off his own injury of his own. They have the MVP there, and I think they're definitely an interesting team in terms of potential trades. They've been in talks for acquiring that like third guy to kind of put them over the edge. So they're definitely an interesting one. But yeah, Chris Paul, he's heading into free agency, unrestricted free agency. Do you think he re-ups in Phoenix, or is it a new chapter in his career?
Is that this summer he's going into free agency?
He's on the market this summer. Yep.
Wow. Well, I was reading that the Lakers are going to try to push for him. They're going to try to push for either him or Russell Westbrook, one of the two. They want a veteran, superstar point guard in that sense. I wouldn't be shocked if he joins his buddy LeBron, but it's hard with like it's so the salary cap in basketball is so confusing to me because some teams are just able to swing. Like the fact that we're able to have a team that has Blake Griffin, Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, James Harden all on that team, and they're not over the salary cap. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not really sure how exactly it's going to work out to add Chris Paul to a LeBron James, Anthony Davis kind of team, right?
The thing with those teams is the Nets, they have three guys on big salaries, and Durant, Kyrie, Harden, and then obviously Griffin took a cut salary, and they're just filling out the depth with a bunch of role guys. It's not, you're not getting a big, because you can only afford so much. So you're allocating so much of your salary to those three guys. But yeah, for the Lakers, I think that would be definitely a big issue, because you got to move on some guys like Kuzma. You got to move. You're not bringing back Schroeder. You're not bringing back a bunch of guys. If you're trying to bring in Chris Paul's salary to that team, I think he would put them as the clear favorites in the West if he signed in LA. But I kind of want to see him run it back with Phoenix, honestly. You just got to the finals. Why not try to run it back, keep some continuity there? I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
I hear that. I don't know about what would happen if he stays, just because I think that team is great. I mean, I was pleasantly surprised by DeAndre Ayton, who we mentioned a little bit earlier. You may have said the stage may have been a little big for him, or he was just a little bit nervous in his first finals appearance at such a young age. I think, he played his role fantastic throughout the playoffs. He was getting, a consistent 10 boards a game. He was scoring when he had to. He was playing good defense. He may not have been good enough to guard Giannis in the finals, but other than that, he played good defense.
Yeah.
I think that team is legit. Honestly, I think like we were always saying, they were a team that was a piece away that finally got that piece, and they made their first finals or in what 2017,
28 years.
28 years. Yeah, 93. Yeah. So 28 years now. Wow, time flies. It's one of those things when like you always think you're like in 2009, 2010. You're like, oh yeah, 1993 was 10 years ago.
Nope, it's been a while. It's Charles Barkley days. That was, I believe, the Bulls' third title.
Yeah.
I think that year. But yeah. So I mean, Phoenix, do you think that they've kind of capped themselves out in terms of like how far they can go? Because like you look at their roster, the only way they're getting back to the finals is if they bring back Paul like to that team. I mean, he was so valuable, even though he kind of flamed out at the end, you could argue. He couldn't get them over the hump. Do you think, like, I think personally this was their one shot, because we look at the run to get to this point. They got past the Lakers, who were pretty banged up. They swept the Nuggets without Murray, and then they faced a Clippers team without Kawhi. I mean, like, fair enough. You got to beat who's in front of you. I'm not discrediting them for that, but I just think this was kind of their one shot at a title.
I mean, at the end of the day, like Chris Paul obviously makes that team better. There's a reason they made the finals. And to say like, yeah, is that their ceiling? I mean, finals is really the furthest you can go, right?
There's no
So I
shame in a
mean,
finals appearance. No.
not at all. But at the same time, you got to look at it as, do we think that was the best of Devin Booker? Maybe at the beginning of the series. I don't think going forward, especially I don't think that game 6. I was definitely not the best of Devin Booker.
Right.
Coming off, I believe before that, back-to-back 40-point games,
Mm-hmm.
an unfortunate turnover in the last 20-ish seconds of game 5.
Yep.
For me, that I thought that was a choke, honestly, because I thought the ball was in his hands. I had complete faith in him. I thought this guy was pulling up. He had all the time in the world. All he needed was a 2, and then they would have been clear, right? He lost the ball. Giannis gets it. Giannis dunks and 1 foul, and they close out the game. But for the Suns, I think they could get better if we see another, whether it's Chris Paul or not. We need a superstar there, because they need that one piece, right?
You think they're one piece away, is what you're saying.
But
like
whether it's Chris Paul or not, you know what I mean? It's got to be someone. Me personally, I wouldn't mind seeing, because as we've heard, Damian Lillard could be on the market this summer. I wouldn't mind seeing Damian Lillard team up with Devin Booker. That would be a fantastic team.
That'd be quite the upgrade.
Or maybe a D'Angelo Russell. That could be an okay little addition. It would be a bit of a downgrade to Chris Paul, in my opinion. But I think D'Angelo Russell, I did hear at least a month ago that he could be out on his way out of Minnesota. It just seemed to be a failed project over there. I mean, I don't know. I think the Suns are legit. A lot of people can discredit them by saying, it was a Mickey Mouse run or whatever it is. But, like you said, you can only play who's in front of you. And they played all those games to perfection. I mean, to beat the Lakers, to beat a LeBron James-led team, that takes serious game, right?
In the playoffs,
we saw
Yeah.
We saw it happen. We never saw LeBron lose in the first round ever. In our lifetimes, we've never seen LeBron lose in the first round. And we finally saw it. But yeah, the Suns, I'm excited for their future, because I don't think this is over. Devin Booker is a stud, and he deserves all the flowers. But nevertheless, let's give all of our credit to Giannis Antetokounmpo, who he's gotten way too much slander, way too much hate, and he's finally being credited the respect he deserves. And hats off to him for that.
Yeah, 100%. Any more thoughts on the NBA? Or
time? You want to do our? We wanted to do maybe an early 2021 prediction. 2021.
Okay, yeah. Let's wrap basketball up on that 2021-22 title prediction, or.
I mean, we're gonna do definitely a big episode of this come like
just
October-ish.
A way too early pick right now.
Yeah.
You know what? If Milwaukee can add to that roster, I got the Bucks going back to back.
Really, eh? But who would you think they could add or would add?
We don't know that, but they have flexibility in terms of their roster and what they can do with it. They're not entirely capped out. They add some nice bench pieces on the buyout market. I don't think they have too many assets to trade, because they obviously expended those in the holiday trade. But get a couple of nice buyout guys, add to that bench depth. Yeah, I got the Bucks back to back. That's bold, considering if the Nets are healthy, they're the best team in basketball, right? But yeah, I got the Bucks. I trust this Giannis guy.
Oh, you trust this guy? Eh? No, I'm actually, as much as I hate to say it, I'm taking the Nets next year, and I think we're gonna get that final that we wanted this year, the Nets Lakers final. I think we're gonna get that next year, but I think the Nets won't have an easy run by any stretch of the imagination. I think if the Bucks do end up matching up against them in the playoffs, I think that's going to be a 7-game series yet again. Healthy or not, that's going to be a 7-game series.
Yeah.
So it's definitely going to be a very interesting season next year. You have a little point here as well. Has Giannis officially passed Kyrie Irving all time? I mean, me personally, I don't know if this is a piss take, because I don't think there was ever a time in Kyrie's career that he was with Giannis when we're talking about a 2-time MVP. But I mean,
no, I just wanted you to react to that.
Yeah, you go. It's close, but I'd give the edge to Giannis after Tuesday's performance. Can we put some respect on Giannis Antetokounmpo's name, please? Comparing them with one ring. Come on. Was Kyrie the most important reason they won? No.
Yeah, I mean, they're both on one title. It's close.
Come on, man. I'm about to do that. The Bradley Beal. You know, remember when he had his hands on his waist and he was looking at the fan like, I suck? No, I'm about to do that to you, bro. Come on now.
I'm playing. But so you got the Nets. I'd say that's a good pick. I mean, yeah, coming into the next year, they're clear of everybody in terms of betting odds. They bring up that big three if they're healthy. We both know, man. Like we both know. Come on, let's be real here. If the Bucks or if the Nets were healthy, they'd win. They'd be still bringing a title right now themselves. But they just got hit with the injury bug. So that's a great pick. Yeah. Any more thoughts on basketball for you, or we get to?
Let's move on to footy.
The footy, okay. Do you want to kick that off then?
Well, actually, we had a very interesting topic, but it turned out it was a fake rumor. It was a rumor of a FIFA monitoring a rule change. It was going to be 30-minute halves, kick-ins instead of throw-ins. Like so many stupid little rules that we just most people weren't fans of. I don't know about you, Bo, and I thought they were stupid personally.
Was that not broken on like reputable sources though?
Yeah, which is surprising that the tweet's not deleted. Like these people really need to do their because FIFA came out and just denied all the rumors. They said these are allegations that are.
Do you have the rules in front of you? Do you want to like?
I could pull them up. Just give me 1 second.
It'd make for a fun conversation at least. 30-minute halves.
So from what I understand, the rule change, this is the wrong article. Give me 1 sec. Okay, 30-minute halves. These are 5 potential rules that could have been changed. Throw-ins would have been completely thrown out the window, would have been just kick-ins. Unlimited substitutions, so no more 3 or 5, which is already a little bit
we're getting close to there with 5.
We don't really know why it's still 5. It started off as 5 when the pandemic first, when they first came out back through pandemic. They said people are playing after not playing for a while, they need to have the chance to have at least 5 subs. We said all right, that's still kind of in play. It's weird because FIFA video games don't include 5 substitutions. They still include 3. So we don't know whether or not they'll come back to that. Obviously EA has good relations with FIFA, so we would assume that they would know what's happening there.
100%.
Yellow card sin bins. So in the sense of what happens in hockey, where you get sent to the penalty box, you get a power play or whatever. Yellow cards would make a player leave the field for about 5 minutes. Meaning it would be like a 10v11 or something of that sort. Dribbling from corners, so no more direct corner kicks, but you're able to just on the corner, you're able to just drive the ball in. For me, I always loved the idea of corner kicks. I thought that would have been perfect. Like that was already perfect. There's no reason to touch that. But I'm glad this is all fake news. And even though this is on marca.com, it was a very reputable source in the football world. It's clearly fake. And whoever spread that rumor, screw you, because that was just not necessary on a Monday night to see all these potential rule changes, right?
See, yeah, I mean, I don't even know how that article was like formed and how it got out to such a large audience and had people believing it. But I mean, I guess it's the internet. Don't believe everything you read on there. I mean, my favorite rule from that, if it were to go through, would probably be, I think the sin bin would be hilarious. Just because there's a couple of guys who both get yellows at the same time, or a couple of yellows in subsequent fashion, you'd be down to like a 10 versus 9 at some points. But I mean, these proposed changes, I'm glad they're fake because they completely ruin the game. Like 30-minute halves, like what even is that?
Could you imagine a goalkeeper getting sent to the sin bin and then just open fucking net? Like you could just score from anywhere, just shoot the ball. Or like, could you imagine if like someone like Ronaldo, like someone's so competitive, getting a yellow card, has to sit out for 5 minutes, watch the team like capitulate. This guy's raging on the sideline. Oh my God. That's that's ridiculous. that would make for a fun, like, in FIFA a couple years ago, I think they added like that
that
No
mode.
rules, no
Yeah,
rules
no
mode.
rules.
I
Imagine
love
they
it.
like implemented that to FIFA.
I
Like,
love it. Anytime someone's through, you just break their legs. Yeah.
they're just able to implement these. You know, it's the off season when we're bringing up FIFA's no rules. It's all good. It's all good. Yeah, Milan. As for actual football news, I mean, it's kind of dry right now. I
Yeah,
guess we
I
can talk
actually,
about.
I had a question to you personally about Arsenal's movements right now. First off, I'll start with the two signings that were announced over the last week or so. Nuno Tavares, the Porto, I believe, or it was a Benfica, one of the two.
Benfica left back.
Left back
Former.
signed. And Albert Sambi Lokonga, who would prefer to be referred to as Sambi, as he said in his interview. I believe he would be more so of a winger or a midfielder of
Yeah,
sorts.
kind of like Thomas Partey, kind of that kind of role in terms of what he does.
What are your thoughts? Obviously, I would be surprised if you were to tell me you've watched either of these players play ever. But what are your thoughts on the signings in terms of what they bring to Arsenal? We know Arsenal's had a let's be honest here. Arsenal's been down in the dumps for at least the last year. Not a preferable sight to see in terms of a footballing fan, to see a successful and legendary team like Arsenal be down bad like this. But what do you think of these signings? What do they bring to the team's dynamic?
I'm not gonna go crazy here. It's just a couple of depth signings, really. I mean, Tavares, he's a clear backup left back to Kieran Tierney, and Wakonga, he's a backup center mid to Sambi. He's a backup center mid to Thomas Partey. So, but I mean, it's depth signings. You need that, and I don't know, Milan. Sorry to kind of downplay these, but it's nice to get some signings in. Tavares actually scored in Arsenal's one of their preseason games. A nice goal at that, but again, it's preseason. But yeah,
and it was a 2-2 draw.
It was a 2-2. Let's not hype it up too much. But it was a nice goal. So fair play to you on that, Nuno. But yeah, no, I think the real meat and potatoes of this transfer window for Arsenal are going to come in the coming weeks. Ben White's rumored to come in from Brighton. They're still looking to sign another central midfielder. Emile Smith-Rowe was given the number 10 shirt, so he's obviously.
I was just going to ask you about that. Yeah.
Yeah, he's going to be in the starting plans next season. And yeah, just maybe a center forward as well if Alex Slack is out the door. But yeah, still 5 weeks left in the transfer window, so a lot of stuff could go down there. But yeah, it's nice to see some two signings, and I want to see some of Sambi this season, but he's still very young, so can't expect too much on that front, I guess.
But to be fair, I mean, both those players, left back and Thomas Partey in the center mid, both of those players are the players that I would say when they were injured, that was when your team almost fell apart, right? For me, other than maybe Bukayo Saka, I'd say Kieran Tierney alongside Nico Pepe, they were your best players last season, right? Kieran Tierney, even as a defender going forward, he brings so much for me, potentially even top 5 fullbacks in the world, I would say, in terms of at least left-sided fullbacks. And Sambi obviously, Thomas Partey missed majority of the season due to injury. He never really was injured at Atletico Madrid too, which is pretty weird to see him miss so much game time. Maybe it had to do with sitting out during the pandemic, not being at full fitness, not having. A lot of people came to say that Arsenal's woes, at least early on in the season, came to the fact that they had to play without a preseason. Obviously, everyone did, but specifically Arsenal, without getting to, they just got a new manager in Mikel Arteta. They weren't really accustomed to it. They didn't really get a preseason. Now they have a preseason under the belt. It's going a little bit rough. Maybe they're getting the rough patch out the way early, which me personally, I would love to see it. But Emile Smith-Rowe, I want to get your opinion. I feel like I might be a little bit harsh. I think Emile Smith-Rowe is a baller, and that's not to say what I'm about to say is gonna discredit that. But do you think he's deserving of the number 10 of one of the biggest clubs in England?
I mean, Bukayo Saka got number 7 pretty quickly into his emergence to the first team, and I think it shows that they're building around young young academy players in Smith Rowe and Saka to that extent. They put a lot of trust in them. So I think, I mean, a number is just a number. And I guess in football, numbers carry a lot more weight than in other sports. But I definitely think if he's genuinely going to be part of the starting lineup and the starting plans next season, I don't see why not. You're putting a great message out there to young talents in the pipeline, I guess you could call it, in the academy, that if you come up and you can impress, you'll be awarded with a number and a new contract. So I think he's very deserving personally.
I hear that. Me personally, I don't think he's at least yet should be given the even consideration for a number 10. I think he's a great player, but I don't think he's deserving of a number 10 for me for the third biggest club in England, or tied for third, I'd say, with Chelsea maybe at this point.
I mean, but look how he came into the team last year and turned fortunes around, right? They were in 15th in December. He comes into the team. They had the third best league form at the back half of the season when he was playing a lot. Like, yeah, he didn't like light the world on fire, but he definitely really helped get them out of a pretty bad space. So I think it's just more, I don't know.
Sending a message.
Exactly. It's more sending a message to the academy.
As we know, the Arsenal Academy is, it's great. It may not keep all their players, but we know most players that come out of the Arsenal Academy become studs. I mean, we've got Ismail Benacer playing at Milan. Fantastic player. You got Daniel Malin playing out in the Netherlands. Great player yet again.
Serge
Gnabry, Bayern Munich, a killer in the Champions League. I mean, the Arsenal Academy is definitely one of the greats. We got to give Wenger a lot of credit for that, because when he did invest into the academy, it seemed to pay off. We didn't see it too often, but we did see it enough, and we saw a lot of superstars come out of that. I mean, prime Jack Wilshere was one of the best midfielders I'd seen coming out of England.
And it's good, honestly, Milan, just to see. I think this is another talking point, but just to see Arsenal kind of, they're not going for these stopgap signings like we saw a couple of years ago, trying to get back into the Champions League. They're really trusting the younger players at the club. I think that's a really good way to kind of build continuity, build cohesion, and it shows they're not just throwing money at the wall and seeing what sticks. It shows they're trusting like the development foundations that the club has in place. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
No, that's the real process. I mean, Philly needs to start taking notes. That's how you do a process. It might take a while and you might get bantered a lot, but that's a process. That's, not having a good team, but you're building every position. You're not drafting 8 centers and then hoping one is going to be good eventually.
Right.
Because all of them were going to be good. And then 6 of them got injured. And then one of them was a flop. And then the other one, who is still injury prone, arguably is one of the best, could be one of the best centers of all time in terms of pure basketball ability, right? And Joel Embiid, I speak on. That's how you do a process, and I hope this process takes a little bit faster for Arsenal, just because in football it's a little different. Obviously, you've got 11 players to take care of plus a bench. You've got a full team to take care of rather than just 5 positions. You get 82 games there, whatever it is. It's a little bit different. Sports is different. It's different to work with. But I mean, when you've got a player like Bukayo Saka, for me, a fantastic youngster. Very versatile, can play both wings, can play in defense, can
play through the center even if needed.
Play through the center if needed, can, does great link up play with the forwards. I mean, the future is definitely bright for Arsenal, and Arsenal fans, you may be sad now, but there's good times coming. Believe me.
Hopefully. I mean, what would you say is a successful season for Arsenal next year? Like, let's wrap the Arsenal talk on that. What do you think is
like the utmost minimum for them to get to be successful? Europa League position.
Back into Europe?
But that's horrible. I wouldn't wish Europa League upon anyone.
I have to say top 4 would be the goal, but it's going to be tough because the top, as we've talked about time and time again, the top 6 has become the top 4 has become the top 6, which has become the top 8. Like, there's teams to that depth in the league that are really genuinely pushing for Champions League football. And not all
Leicester City doing it 2 years straight.
6. Yeah,
we got Leicester doing it 2 years straight. They might choke it every time, but they're doing it 2 years straight now, right?
They're up in that mix. Tottenham on a good year. Arsenal for years they've been there. Liverpool now has brought themselves back into that talk. Chelsea's always there. United's mostly there. City's constantly there nowadays. Like it's it's stacked. So I think Arsenal, in terms of what they should be achieving for, is top four. But I mean, at least back in the Europe, bar minimum, I'd say. But yeah, above the Conference League, but bar minimum Europa League places for sure.
Fair point.
So yeah.
I was just gonna maybe mention one more thing on terms of footy, and then we can move on.
Yeah.
It feels like we talk about this every week, but PSG, what they're doing with this transfer window and how they're signing left and right, they're signing just every position everywhere. What are your thoughts on it? There's rumors right now that they're about to sign Joaquin Correa from Lazio, giving them another attacking superstar, or at least someone to come off the bench for Mbappe or Neymar, which is, that's scary because Joaquin Correa lights it up in the Serie A. So I know he's going to be a great player
in France,
for PSG.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you think about this whole, how is this fair? How is it that financial fair play only exists for one team and not for the others,
Well, I'm not surprised. I mean, they lost it on the league. They lost on the Champions League. They know Mbappe might leave next summer, and Neymar is only getting older. And that's the project they were building when they brought those players in, was the Champions League. They've clearly moved on from the Ibrahimovic days when he was banging in goals with Cavani up top. They're a different team. They have higher aspirations. And yeah, it's ridiculous that they can spend so much and just freely, especially in a depressed market in terms of COVID. It'll bounce back soon, but right now with the spending they're doing and the players they're bringing in, granted, Ramos, Wijnaldum, Donnarumma, Tunics, Donnarumma, all free agent signings. So they weren't setting up free agent signings,
but they're getting paid 10 million plus in wages. So is it really a free agent signing? And then as well, when you're at least in terms of the Donnarumma signing, you're paying 20 million in Mino Raiola. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, but it's Paris, right? We know they have this capital. We know they have this ability, and they're just flexing on everybody. So, I mean, they're one of the most they're one of the biggest brands in football. That doesn't make it fair, but they have the ability and they're just doing it. So, and we both know that financial fair play rules are pretty much a joke with what happened to Manchester City a couple years back when they were supposedly going to get banned from Europe, and it just became a slap on the wrist essentially. So, some teams kind of can skirt by it, and Paris is one of them, I'd say. That sounds biased, but come on, we saw it with City.
It's not biased when this team is literally, and I say this, and it's absolutely nothing salty. I wish all the best to Donnarumma. We have a great goalkeeper already in replacement of him. Do what you got to do, whether you have to leave there or play for Real Madrid or whoever it is. PSG is ruining football, because when you're just buying every player and just not giving anyone else a chance to compete, it's like the reason that people hate the Brooklyn Nets, right? Because the Brooklyn Nets just ruin the sense of competition. The only way they have competition is if they get injured, and then you feel bad because they're not at full strength, and then they lose not full strength. It's just a whole thing, and the expectations are obviously sky high for PSG now. They should be winning the treble, and it's not even, and it's. I say that, and it's kind of laughable that you expect a trouble, but you should be when you have Sergio Ramos, who's coming off maybe an injured year, but still one of the better defenders in the world. You got Mbappe, Neymar. Your midfield is still a little bare bones, but Gino Wijnaldum, a great signing. You got, I'd say, two of the top 5 best goalkeepers in the world in Keylor Navas and Gigi Donnarumma. You signed Hakimi, the best player in the world in his position. How much more do you need,
Yeah, they're, I mean, but then again, the thing is, Neymar, if he wanted to, he could hold some leverage and leave. Obviously, he likely won't, but if he wanted to, he could. He holds that kind of leverage, so they got to appease him. Mbappe sounds like he's out the door next summer if he's truly going to run down his contract. So I see what they're doing. Obviously, it sucks because they're spending a lot of money and they have a lot of money to spend, and they're doing it. But that's what they got to do. They're in it for a reason, to win the Champions League. So it's just. And that's how football is built, right? Some teams have a lot more money to spend than others, and Paris is arguably the richest team in world football. I don't have 100%. A financial sheet in front of me, but one more question on this. If Paris ever wins the Champions League, do you think the reaction will just be more piss takes than genuine congratulations?
If they win everything or if they don't win anything.
Yeah, like if they win a Champions League, right? Because we saw with City this year, we saw people kind of just taking the piss, slandering their how many millions they've spent on players. Do you think it'll be more of that, or will it be like them receiving their praise if Paris win the Champions League?
I think it's so hard because they're also employing a former Tottenham coach. Like if you have any relation to Tottenham, like for example, Heung-min Son, fantastic player. I love this guy. I don't know why he's wasting his talents in Tottenham, but that guy, even though he's a great player, he's always gonna get the piss taken out of him because he plays for Tottenham. You know what I mean? Like
Harry
when you
Kane.
have Harry Kane, another great player, easy to take the piss out of him. You know what I mean? Like, I think when you have any relation to that, on top of already being like notorious for being a team that just spends, you're always going to be getting the piss taken out of you, whether you win or not. But I mean, at the end of the day, no one else's opinions matter when you win. Like all you can say
Literally,
is,
yeah.
What's your title? What's your trophy cabinet looking at this season, right?
Mhm.
And if it's not a trouble like PSG's potentially, then you can't be talking, right?
Yeah.
I'm still going to be taking the piss because they have Donnarumma, and I'm always going to be a little bit salty. And I take full, not credit, but I take full responsibility for that. You know what I mean? I'm not dodging it or saying I'm not salty. Like I fully know I'm being salty about this. But in my humble opinion, I believe they're ruining football, and this, financial fair play, it's false, it's fake, and we need to abolish and make something else because it clearly isn't working. Like, how is this fair? Genuinely.
Yeah. I don't ever think it's going to happen. I think Paris are just going to keep spending until they eventually win the Champions League. I don't know when that'll happen, but yeah, it's just the discrepancy in power of these extremely wealthy clubs, and it's gotten worse over the years. And I think I just don't know when it's going to end. I don't know. I guess that's my final thought on that.
I mean, I'd say that's a good way to end it. But other than that, I mean, the Olympics are on right now, the Tokyo 2020, or I guess 2021 Olympics. I don't know how much you're watching of Bowen, but the men's footy, it seems pretty interesting. I mean, there's a few teams that are like all legit. You know what I mean? You got France, unfortunately, did lose 4-1 today. I picked them as one of my teams to look out for. Yeah, 4-1 or 4-1 to Mexico. Andre Pierre-Gignac scored a pen. Fully apologized for scoring. Not even apologized for celebrating. Apologized for scoring. Now that he's a cult hero out in Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I'm looking out for Pierre Kalulu, Milan player, very versatile in defense. I want to see how much he can really do for that France team. Côte d'Ivoire, they won their game. They've got a pretty okay team. I mean, you got Kessie playing for them. You got Eric Bailly in the defense. You got Amad Diallo of Man United up top.
Wow, that's actually
That's a pretty legit team.
It's pretty good core, yeah.
And Kessie got the game winner today. Shout out to Kessie on that. Brazil, we always know what Brazil is going to bring. Brazil consistently brings out golden generations. You got Richarlison scoring a hat trick today. I believe they beat Germany 4-0. I'm not entirely sure.
Going straight from the Copa to the Olympics. Respect.
Well, forget that. Think about the Spain squad. I'd say about 8 out of 11 starting lineup players in the Spain squad are playing for the Olympic squad. You got Pedri, you got Unai Simon,
Wow.
Dani Olmo's there, Oyarzabal is there. That Spain team is overpowered. I mean, Spain Olympic team, they should, for me, I was looking at who they called up. That should be the favorites by far.
That's incredible. That's 4 players that all got minutes at the Euros, I believe.
Pau Torres is there. Eric Garcia is there for Barcelona.
Geez.
You got Mikel Merino from Real Sociedad. That team is fantastic. And they didn't even call, you're able to call up, I believe it's 2 overage players. Mm-hmm. I didn't think I saw a single one. I think they were all under 24.
Wow. That's incredible. I'm going to have to start watching the Spain games. Like, as you said, I haven't watched any of the Olympics so far, but it only got underway. So have you watched much of the action at all? Because I know it's in Tokyo.
It's difficult, the time zones, right? What I'm excited for, as a former judoka myself, judo is coming for the Olympics. Obviously, Japan's sport as well.
Yeah.
I have a lot of friends that are competing actually in the Olympics for Canada. My boy
Okay.
Shadi El Nahas in the minus 100 kilo division. That's going to be the problem is that it's going to be starting when it's 11 a.m. there, meaning it's going to be 10 p.m. here. So I'm going to be up until about 6 in the morning, hoping I can catch the final, right?
Right.
But he's legit. So if anyone's watching the Olympics this year, if there's any sport you would want to give a chance to, I know obviously skateboarding is going to be one of the big ones. We haven't seen skateboarding Olympics ever. We're going to want to see what's going to happen in the skateboarding competition. Football is always one of them. Track and field, the 100 meter dash. Of course, everyone's going to be watching that.
I believe baseball is back in the Olympics too this year.
Baseball is as well, yes. But if there is a sport that you really want to give a chance, give it something to watch, especially as a Canadian, I highly recommend judo, the minus 100 kilo division. We got 2 athletes competing in the minus 57 division for the women's, 2 that could potentially be in the finals, in my opinion, in terms of Jessica Klumkate from Ontario and Krista Deguchi. I believe she's from Alberta. There's, the future's looking bright for Canadian judo, but just the Olympics as a whole, I'm not as sold on it this year as I am normally. I think the pandemic's kind of affected that personally.
100%.
It's just not being able to go out. Like, yeah, we can go out. We're in stage 3 in Ontario. I believe BC is looking pretty good on that front as well in terms of cases and vaccinations, but it's just hard now. It's just not as entertaining, especially it's harder when it's in a different continent in terms of time zones. Yeah. A lot of people that we know that are volunteering, helping out with the CDC are working like late night shifts, 4 a.m. They're out there, helping produce, helping edit, whatever it is. It's a tough job to do, and hats off to them for that. But you know what I mean? The Olympics are looking all right. And if I have a chance to watch something, I definitely will.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, Milan. I'm not trying to slander all over the Olympics, but this year, I mean, just being, older, have a bit more different responsibilities than you would have in years past. It's the time zones and the pandemic kind of depressing it in terms of we're going away from the NBA finals where the Pfizer Forum was packed and Milwaukee had 65,000 outside of their arena. In Tokyo, apparently a lot of people weren't even that high on hosting the Olympics. And with all the money and the resources that are poured into it, it's tough to outright cancel. And that obviously didn't happen, but there's been a lot of backlash towards it. So I'll watch, but I mean, yeah, I definitely say I'm not as high on it as in years past, but it'll still grab my attention because I don't know about you, but the Olympics, it grabs my attention every time it comes on. But this year I'd say it was so.
Most definitely. Is there anything else you wanted to add, or do you want to go into Que Jogador?
Yeah, just get on to Que Jogador.
Que Jogador. So for this week, do you want to go first or should I?
I feel like we might have the same player, so you go first.
I actually don't have a player. I have Alex Scott, MBE. She is, if you don't know, she's a presenter, commentator for Sky Sports. She was announced as the first female commentator for FIFA in history. So she's going to be the commentator in FIFA 22. Obviously, I sound like a bit of a nerd just talking about video games, but it's a pretty big achievement, and I'm happy for Alex Scott because I respect her takes. I think she knows what the hell she's talking about. I mean, she's a former player. She played in the 2012 Olympics for England, or Great Britain, pardon me, because that's what they're known as in the Olympics. She played for Arsenal, I believe, Man City, I believe. I'm not entirely sure on that front, but she had a pretty decent career, and she's having a great career post-retirement now. And hats off to her for that. She's definitely deserving of it. And it's good to hear some good different voices in the game, compared to the classic generic Martin Tyler and Alan Smith that we hear every single year for the last 20 years. So yeah, hats off to her for that.
Could you see, because obviously FIFA, they brought in the women's national teams, I believe it was in FIFA 16. Could you see them implementing in full-on leagues? Obviously that would have to do a lot with licensing and rights, but could they get to that point in the future, do you think?
For me, it all depends on how it turns out with the Women's Champions League in the next few years, right?
Yeah.
That's the biggest selling point now that UEFA has a deal with FIFA, with EA Sports, with FIFA, I guess. If that happens, I don't think there's any reason why there shouldn't be like a specific mode in FIFA where you can use women's leagues, I mean, they have it in 2K, right? Because the WNBA has a good partnership with 2K Sports. So there's no reason that EA would not be able to add it. Women's Champions League is something I'm going to be keeping up with a lot this year, specifically now that Milan's first qualified for the Champions League in their history. So I'll definitely be watching that. But yeah, I mean, it's good for representation in football, and I'm happy that Alex Scott finally is getting her opportunity. She's great at her job, and hats off to her for that.
Oh, 100%. And that'll be in FIFA 22, correct? Obviously, the next upcoming game. Yeah. I'll have to look out for that. Did it say what role? One more thing. Did it say what like role will she just be commentating? Selects? Like how that?
I'm not sure if she's either going to be like one of the injury commentators or whatever it is, but she's definitely going to be in the game somewhat, which is
in the game,
for FIFA,
at least, right? Yeah. Okay.
So that's the most important thing.
I'll be looking out for that. That's pretty cool. I'll be looking out for that for sure, because I'll be picking up FIFA myself for the first time in a couple of years. But yeah, for myself, I have to go to number 34, the Milwaukee Bucks, Giannis Antetokounmpo. The easy pick, but you had to do it. He did you see yesterday? He went to Chick-fil-A.
Yeah, I was waiting for you to mention this. I love this story. Oh man.
Giannis, after winning the championship, next day goes on Instagram Live and orders a 50-piece.
But he said not 49, not 51, 50. You got me?
And the cool thing was he put the Chick-fil-A worker, I guess, on his Instagram Live, but he didn't just flip the camera. He asked, he's like, "Is it cool if I put you on my Instagram story?" So, he's a great guy on the court, but he's just an even better guy off the court. And title, Finals MVP, 50-piece of nuggets at Chick-fil-A. Giannis,
gotta love it. Gotta love it. And just before we kind of go off on topic or to close out here, I just want to say, you said great guy on and off the court. For me, that's more so a reason why I'm so happy he won the ring, right? We don't really see we don't see the people that deserve it in sports win as much, because Damian Lillard deserves a ring. We may never see that happen, right? I'm happy that Giannis is finally able to break that slump for himself, for the city of Milwaukee, and hats off to him for that.
Yeah, 100%. It's just a great story, and it just sends a great message. One last point, it sends a great message. It's just, he talks about in his post-game presser, just come here, build something. He's like, I could have easily gone to a super team and done that. He's like, no, I'm staying here, building something. And I think that's something a lot of the next generation coming up in the league needs to see, is that you can build something and win a championship if you just stick with it. So yeah, it's just a great story, and I'm just over the moon. I'm not even a Bucks fan, but I'm just a wonderful story. So any last thoughts, or we get to wrap up?
Good to wrap up, boss.
All right, so thanks to everybody for watching and listening to another episode of Slightly Biased Sports Talks. For myself, Bowen Cunningham, Milan and Bowen. This has been yet another episode of Slightly Biased Sports Talks. We'll be back in the week with more content. Until then, take it easy. Out of here.
Later.